You ever feel like your whole life has been one big setup? Like everyone knew the script but you? That was me the day I found the letter. Just one page tucked inside an old book, and it changed everything. Growing up, my family looked perfect from the outside. White picket fence, holiday cards with matching sweaters, home-cooked meals. But inside that house it was always about my older brother, Adam. He was the golden boy. Straight A's, football captain, and somehow always my parents' favorite. Me? I was the quiet one. The artsy daughter who liked books more than people and never really fit in. My parents said they loved us both the same, but it never felt that way. It was like Adam could do no wrong and I could never do enough. When our mom got sick, everything got worse. Dad grew quieter. Adam started managing things, acting like he already owned the house. And me? I moved back home to help. I cooked. I cleaned. I stayed up all night with Mom when her pain got bad. But when she passed, guess who they credited for everything? Adam. I didn't say anything then. What was the point? Grief messes with your mind. And besides, I thought Dad and I would get closer now. We were both hurting, right? Wrong. 6 months later, my father died of a heart attack. Suddenly it was just Adam and me. 2 siblings standing in a lawyer's office, waiting to hear how our father had split his estate. Except he hadn't split it. He left everything to Adam. The house. The savings. The business shares. Everything. Not even a letter for me. I sat there stunned, trying to process what had just happened. The lawyer kept droning on, but it was all background noise. My heart pounded. My throat closed up. Adam didn't even look surprised. He just smirked. "I'm sure Dad knew what he was doing," he said, slipping the folder into his briefcase. And just like that, it was over. Years of love, labor, and loyalty gone. I walked out of that office with nothing. But something didn't sit right. Dad had always been traditional, yes. Favoring Adam, yes. But to leave me absolutely nothing? That wasn't him. Not entirely. I started looking through the house. Old drawers. Boxes. Photo albums. I need it. I don't know, proof? A goodbye? Some sign that he hadn't just erased me. That's when I found the letter. It was inside a hollowed-out dictionary in Dad's study. At first I thought it was just a forgotten bookmark. But when I unfolded it, my hands began to shake. The handwriting was Dad's. To my daughter, Rachel. That first line alone broke me. But the rest? It made my blood boil. He talked about how proud he was of me. How he knew Adam was manipulative, but felt trapped by family pressure. How he'd wanted to rewrite the will, but was scared it would destroy what little piece we had left. And at the bottom, one line. "If you're reading this, then the truth needs to come out." I didn't sleep that night. I stared at that letter until the sun came up. Every word etched into my memory. The next morning I called Aunt Lucy, Dad's sister. She lived 2 states away, but when she heard what had happened, she drove over that same day. "I always suspected Adam had something to do with this," she said, her mouth tight. "Your father loved you. He talked about you all the time. This doesn't add up." Aunt Lucy had kept some of Dad's old correspondence. We compared handwriting, dates, everything. The signature on the will looked off. The notary was someone Adam went to college with. There were gaps in the paperwork timeline. I was no lawyer, but even I knew something shady was going on. I took it all to a local attorney. He listened carefully, reviewed everything, then sat back. "Rachel, I think we have a case." The weeks that followed were a blur. Depositions. Documents. Endless back and forths. Adam tried to stall everything. He called me dramatic, said I was chasing ghosts. But I had something stronger than drama. I had the truth. And I had that letter. The court date was set for 6 weeks later. I kept quiet during that time. Didn't respond to Adam's texts. Didn't take his calls. He showed up once at my door, yelling about betrayal. I just held up the envelope and said, "Dad left this for me." His face went white. By the time we reached the courthouse, I was ready. Scared, yes. But ready. This wasn't just about money or property anymore. It was about truth. About being seen. About finally being heard. And what happened next? Let's just say, Adam never saw it coming. The morning after my father's funeral, the house was thick with silence. My brother Thomas had already moved into our parents' bedroom, And his wife Marlene was barking orders at the cleaning lady as if she owned the place. I stayed in my old room, still cluttered with posters from high school, memories tucked away in corners no one bothered to touch. Thomas barely spoke to me since the will had been read. According to our father's lawyer, the house, the car, the savings account, everything had been left to Thomas. Not a single mention of me. Not even the antique clock my mom used to wind every night before bed. Not even the photo albums I put together as a kid. Aunt Rosa had placed a hand on my shoulder when the lawyer closed his briefcase and left the room. "There must be something more," she whispered. "Your father wouldn't do this without a reason." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. In the following days I kept to myself. I wandered through the house like a ghost, watching my childhood disappear with every box Marlene taped shut and labeled for donation. She even tried to toss out the old wooden chest in the attic, the one with our family name carved into it. "It's junk," she said, lifting the lid. "It's history," I snapped, pulling it out of her hands. She rolled her eyes but left it alone. That night I opened the chest and ran my fingers across the familiar contents. Old journals, faded photographs, pressed flowers from my mother's garden. And then, tucked between a Bible and a bundle of birthday cards, I found something else. An envelope with my name on it. It was sealed. I sat there for a long time before I opened it. My hands were shaking. The paper was yellowing, but the ink was fresh enough. "My dearest Emily," it began. "If you're reading this, then I'm no longer with you. And if things have gone as I feared they might, you've been left out of the will. There are reasons for this, but none of them reflect my love for you. I needed to protect you. And I need you to do something now." My eyes blurred with tears, but I kept reading. My father had discovered that Thomas had manipulated him during his illness, switched medications, intercepted letters, isolated him from friends. My father had grown suspicious and started documenting everything. The letter included a second envelope, addressed to his attorney, and instructions for me to deliver it only if things unfolded the way he feared. I clutched the envelope to my chest, stunned. The next morning I didn't say a word to Thomas. I made myself breakfast, packed my bag, and drove to my father's attorney's office. The secretary looked at me like I was lost. "Is Mr. Langston available?" I asked. She frowned. "He retired last month." My heart sank. "Do you know who took over his practice?" She nodded and handed me a card. "His associate, Miss Caroline Vega. She's good. Very good." I thanked her and drove across town. Ms. Vega welcomed me into her office and listened as I explained everything. I handed her the sealed envelope. Her brows lifted as she read. "This changes everything," she said quietly. "Your father suspected undue influence. If we can prove that, we can challenge the will." We spent the next week gathering evidence. Caroline contacted my father's doctors and former friends. A pattern emerged: visits that were canceled, calls that were never returned, a private nurse who had been suddenly dismissed and never heard from again. Meanwhile, Thomas and Marlene were remodeling the house. They tore up my mother's garden, painted over the mural she had hand-painted in the hallway, threw out furniture that had been in the family for generations. I kept my distance. I stayed with Aunt Rosa, who gave me her spare room and made me tea every night. One evening she handed me another letter. "I found this tucked inside a cookbook," she said. "Your mother wrote it. It was addressed to your dad." My mother's handwriting was unmistakable. The letter spoke of her fears, that Thomas had become greedy, manipulative, that he treated our parents like obstacles. She begged my father to protect me, to make sure I was taken care of. Caroline was thrilled. "This strengthens your case." A pattern of concern from both parents. We filed a petition to challenge the will. It wasn't easy. Thomas hired a team of aggressive lawyers, and Marlene dragged my name through the mud in every affidavit. But the court agreed to hear the case. In the meantime, word started spreading in town. People who had admired our family began to whisper. Old friends reached out to me with stories. How Thomas had stopped inviting them over. How my father seemed withdrawn in his last year. How Marlene had bragged about finally getting what she deserved. It was painful, but it gave me fuel. I wanted justice. Not just for me, for my parents. For the legacy they tried to build. Caroline prepared me for court like I was going to war. "Stay calm. Stay focused. Let the documents do the talking. I nodded. The night before the hearing, I sat on Aunt Rosa's porch and stared at the stars. I held my father's letter in my hands, worn at the edges now from how often I'd read it. I whispered into the darkness, "I'll do this right, Dad. I promise." And when the day of the hearing arrived, I walked into that courtroom ready to fight. The day of the court hearing arrived, and my nerves were rattling like loose change in my chest. I'd barely slept. My hands trembled slightly as I clutched the envelope that had become my last line of defense, the letter from my father. I hadn't told anyone what it said, not even Aunt Rosa. All I knew was if the judge believed me, everything could change. My brother Aaron arrived with his lawyer and a smug look that made my blood boil. He was wearing our father's old cufflinks, the same ones Dad wore every Sunday to church. I stared at them like they were mocking me. The courtroom was quiet, almost too quiet, as the judge entered. Judge Marks was known to be stern but fair. I silently prayed that he'd see the truth today. Aaron's attorney started strong, presenting the will that clearly stated my parents had left everything to Aaron. The house, the savings, the property, even the small lake cabin we all loved growing up. My name wasn't on a single line. I expected that. Then it was my turn. My lawyer, a woman named Vanessa who reminded me of a lioness in heels, stood up and introduced the one thing we had that Aaron didn't know about. She handed over the letter. The judge took it and read silently, his eyes scanning the paper slowly, brows furrowing halfway through. Aaron whispered to his lawyer, confused. His attorney didn't know what to say. "This letter is dated 3 days before Mr. and Mrs. Carter's accident," the judge finally said. "It states their intent to revise the will to divide the estate equally between their children. In fact, they directly mention a change of heart after some concerning behavior by the current beneficiary." My heart raced. "Miss Carter," the judge said, looking at me, "how did you come by this letter?" "My father mailed it to Aunt Rosa," I said. He knew something wasn't right. He wanted a record. When the revised will didn't show up after the funeral, we assumed it was still in the works. Then I found the letter among her things last month. She must have kept it hidden, afraid of the family drama. The judge nodded. "This changes things." Aaron stood up, furious. "That letter could be fake. It's not notarized. My parents never mentioned any changes to me." Vanessa stepped in. "We had the letter authenticated by a forensic document examiner. It matches Mr. Carter's handwriting exactly. We also found the matching envelope with the postmark. Your Honor, this is as real as it gets." Aaron paled. He looked like he wanted to scream, but he sat back down. The judge leaned back in his chair, tapping the letter against the desk. "In cases like this, intent matters. While the will is the legal document, this letter shows that the decedents were in the process of making changes that never materialized due to untimely death. Given the circumstances, I'm ruling for a temporary freeze on the estate distribution." Aaron's mouth dropped open. "Furthermore," the judge continued, "I'm ordering a full investigation into the estate's management since the date of death. If it's found that assets were distributed or sold in bad faith, there will be consequences." My lawyer squeezed my arm. I wanted to cry. The courtroom adjourned with murmurs. Aaron stormed out, slamming the door behind him. I stayed in my seat, breathing deeply, still trying to believe what had just happened. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Aaron refused to speak to me. I didn't expect him to, but investigators uncovered that he had sold some of our parents' assets quickly after their deaths, without waiting for probate. That added more fuel to the fire. Eventually, the estate was redistributed. I didn't get everything, but I got what mattered most: fairness, justice, closure. And one more thing, the lake cabin. That place held memories of Dad teaching me how to fish, of Mom singing while chopping vegetables, of Aaron and me racing across the dock barefoot. It was ours, and now it was mine. A year later, I stood on that dock, holding a cup of coffee and staring at the calm water. I wasn't angry anymore, just thankful that Dad had written that letter, that I hadn't given up. Sometimes justice doesn't come easy, but when it does, it feels like breathing again. If this story hit your heart, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. More true revenge tales are coming your way.